जय गिरिवर धारी, जय गिरिवर धारी। जय यशोदानन्दना, जय ब्रज जनरञ्जना। जय यशोदानन्दना, जय ब्रज जनरञ्जना। जय यमुना तीरवनचारी, जय कुञ्ज विहारी। जय यमुना तीरवनचारी, जय कुञ्ज विहारी। जय राधा माधव कुञ्ज विहारी। जय राधा माधव कुञ्ज विहारी। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की, श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Today we are reading from Canto 6, Chapter 14. Chapter 14 is entitled King Chitraketu's Lamentation. Today we are on verse 41. Dasinam ko nu santapa, Dasinam ko nu santapa, Swamina paricharyaya, Swamina paricharyaya, Abhikshanam labdhamananam, Abhikshanam labdhamananam, Dasya dasiva durbhaga, Dasya dasiva durbhaga, Dasinam ko nu santapa, Swamina paricharyaya, Abhikshanam labdhamananam Dasya dasiva durbhaga Dasinam ko nu santapa Swamina paricharyaya Abhikshanam labdhamananam Dasya dasiva durbhaga Dasinam ko nu santapa Swamina paricharyaya Abhikshanam labdhamananam Dasya dasiva durbhagaha. Vaishnavis? Dasinam ko nu santapa Dasya dasiva durbhaga Dasinam ko nu santapa Dasinam of the maid servants. Ka, what? Nu, indeed. Santapaha, lamentation. Swaminaha, unto the husband. Paricharyaya, by rendering service. Abhikshanam, constantly. Labdhamananam, honored. Dasya, of the maid servant. Dasi eva, like a maid servant. Durbhaga, most unfortunate. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Even maid servants who are constantly engaged in rendering service to the husband are honored by the husband, and thus they have nothing for which to lament. Our position, however, is that we are maid servants of the maid servant, therefore we are most unfortunate. There's no purport till verse 54, but we'll read just the next 3 verses till 43, and then the next speaker can speak from 44. Text 42. Sri Sukadeva Goswami continued, being neglected by their husband and seeing Kritadyuti's opulence in possessing a son, Kritadyuti's co-wives always burned in envy, which became extremely strong. Text 43. As their envy increased, they lost their intelligence. Being extremely hard-hearted and unable to tolerate the king's neglect, they finally administered poison to the son. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtham Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahiyam Dadati Swapadantikam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we are continuing the discussion of the chapter King Chitraketu's lamentation, and the pastime is unfolding further as we can see. So this all started with Parikshit Maharaj asking Sukhadev Goswami. So we were in the previous chapter, we were in the pastime where the fight between Vritrasura and King Indra was going on. And we were seeing the devotional qualities of Vritrasura being manifest even during that tiring circumstance of being in a fight with Indra and losing his hands and then obviously losing his life. So Parikshit Maharaj asks questions to Sukhadev Goswami that how is this duality there? You know, in a demon body he had such devotional qualities inside him. So how is it that Vritrasura was like this? In answer to that question, Sukhadev Goswami has now started the charitra of Maharaj Chitraketu. Because obviously Vritrasura was Chitraketu in his previous lifetime. We read the pastime how he was cursed by Mother Parvati to become a demon, and therefore he came as Vritrasura. So now we have gone, Sukhadev Goswami has gone into the history of Chitraketu and how he had a son. He didn't have a son, he had millions of wives. So in India, you know, we have that famous TV show. There was a famous TV show called Kaun Banega Crorepati? Who will become a Crorepati? So if we see, Chitraketu Maharaj actually was a Crorepati. He had 1 crore wives. In trying to get a son, he kept marrying, but he was not getting a son only. And then it is described how he prayed, Narada Muni came, how he blessed him with a child, and then he gave that blessing, that kheer to his favorite wife, Kritadyuti, who then gave him a son. So this whole pastime was happening, and Narada Muni had warned him that, you know, you want a child, but there's no child in your destiny actually. But because you're insisting, we will bless you with a child, but remember, he will be the cause of your happiness as well as lamentation. And that time Maharaj Chitraketu thought, when Narada Muni warned him like that, he thought, what lamentation can a small child cause? Obviously, he'll be the cause of my happiness because I've been waiting for years to have a child, and now I'm getting a child, so he's going to be the cause of my happiness. I'm going to shower all love on him. But what lamentation could he cause? Maybe he'll not listen to me. Maybe he will, you know, just run here and there when I'm telling him he should sit and maybe study the scriptures or learn Kshatriya qualities or whatever. Maybe he might not obey my instructions or something like that. Maybe he will trouble his mother. He was thinking of these little, you know, lamentation which normal parents have about their children. But he didn't realize it's going to be this lamentation that will come in his life. He could not foresee that. So when he got this child, obviously he started showering a lot of attention on Kritadyuti. And he started spending, because he had been bereft of a child for such a long time, he became overly attached to his son. And then he was spending most of his time, it is described, just in the company of the son and in the company of the wife who gave him that son. So in the company of the son's mother. So he completely was neglecting all the other wives. He was not doing his duty. I was listening to a class and Man Maharaj was saying that one of the mistakes which Maharaj Chitraketu made was, we understand, you know, one wife can only give him that son if he's been given some prasad, but he should not have neglected his duties towards his other wives. He should have also showered love and attention on them. He should not have just left them to feel as if, you know, they are worthless because they could not give him a son. So we see that situation has happened over here. So he is absolutely, you know, giving them, not giving them any attention, and because of this, the queens have not only become distressed, they are already distressed because they were not able to bear a child. And we heard yesterday in the class that for a woman who gets married, one of the things he wants to do is, Prabhuji, they already put, it's okay. Thank you, Mataji. So one of the things which a wife already wants to do once she gets married is she wants to then enter into the next phase, and which is to become a mother. And Prabhupada also says for a woman it is a complete feeling to become a mother. And we see that these wives were, could not get a child. Obviously, so that distress was already there in their heart, that only one wife could get a child and we could not get a child. We have stayed motherless only, like we have stayed childless only in this lifetime. So that distress was extremely powerful in their heart. And on top of that, they are getting neglected by their husband. So you see, they are facing a double distress in their life right now, because Chitraketu was spending all his time with Kritadyuti and the child. So these wives kept on, in his over-attachment, he did not absolutely give attention to their wives, and he did not realize what his other wives were going through. In his mind space, there was no space to even think about what others are going through. He was so absorbed in his own happiness. He became so self-centered in the jubilation of getting a son after so many years that he completely became oblivious to the fact of what other people are going through and what feelings they are going through. And this is something we see, especially in conditioned souls, we see that a lot. That when there is some happiness which comes in somebody's life, they become so, and especially when they have not had that happiness for a long time, we become so absorbed in that happiness that we tend to neglect our other relationships or other duties or other aspects of our life. And that is the mistake which we are seeing in Maharaj Chitraketu doing over here. So he just didn't neglect them, he didn't give absolutely any attention. And being neglected in your life is a worse feeling than being hated. Actually, at least when somebody expresses hatred or dislike towards us, we know they are expressing some emotion. But when somebody just neglects you as if you don't even exist, that is a worser feeling to harbor in one's heart. And we see this particular feeling being explained by Srila Prabhupada in the pastime of the Yajna Patni's pastime. So when Krishna and Balaram were hungry in the forest, and they send the cowherd boys tell Krishna and Balaram, we are hungry, and they realize Krishna and Balaram are also hungry. So they tell them that there is a nearby place where some Brahmins are doing a yajna, and they have prepared lots of foodstuffs for offering in the yajna. And Sivya is laughing, I know you are doing a drama on that pastime for Janmashtami. So he sends, Krishna and Balaram send the cowherd boys that go and get some foodstuffs from them, because they have prepared a lot of varieties for the yajna. And when those boys come to beg some foodstuffs from these brahmanas, the brahmanas don't even acknowledge their presence. They just neglect that. They continue their yajna. And they continue their, Vedic rituals and of not being disturbed, not getting distracted. And they realize that the Supreme Lord's servants have come to ask for something. But they continue, they absolutely neglect these children. And there Prabhupada says that this neglect and not being acknowledged is worse than actually the brahmanas driving the cowherd boys away. That you all go from here, we are not going to give. Or getting angry with the cowherd boys. At least it shows that they have acknowledged their presence and, they are then displaying some emotion, whatever is there in their heart. But Prabhupada says it's worse to be neglected. And the cowherd boys felt so disappointed that they went back to Krishna and said that we didn't even get a response. We asked them for food, but there was not even a no response. Forget about yes, there was not even a no response from them. So there, Prabhupada explains, and this is exactly what we are seeing over here, that the queens are completely neglected. Their presence is not even being acknowledged by Maharaj Chitraketu. And owing to this, they started burning in envy. So we see how one particular thing lacking in life can lead to other bigger anarthas in the heart. And we see that happening with these queens. Maharaj Chitraketu is making the mistake of not, giving attention and showering affection on them, which are two things that generally in a married relationship, a wife is hankering for. Like if there's a famous book called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And generally some sannyasis also recommend couples who are just getting married to read that book. It's a really good book which explains about a woman's and a man's psychology and how one must adjust to the other's psychology. One cannot assume that the other will understand what I'm going through. Because no, they don't understand each other's psychology. You have to actually read that book and see what others are going through. And over there also it is mentioned that two things which a wife is always wanting from her husband is attention. That means, the husband makes her feel valued in life, and a lot of affection. And both these qualities were lacking When, Chitraketu Maharaj had this son, he completely did not give any attention to his wives. He did not even acknowledge them. And he obviously was not showering any affection for them because there was no space in his heart. His heart was completely absorbed in the happiness of getting the child and spending all the time with the child and the child's mother, Queen Kritadyuti. Now we see a similar example in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. So we see here what had the wives done? They were being neglected, and what were they doing as a reaction to that neglect? They started festering envy in their heart. And in verse 43 we read that because of that envy which became so strongly rooted in their heart, they lost their intelligence and they actually decided to poison the child. Just because the husband was neglecting them, it kept manifesting into greater and greater anarthas. Now we see a similar situation in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. We see the example of Queen Suniti. So we all know the pastime of Dhruv Maharaj, and Dhruv Maharaj's father was King Uttanapad, who had 2 wives. He didn't have 1 crore wives, but he had 2 wives, Suruchi and Suniti. And Suruchi was the favorite king of Maharaj Uttanapad. And because of that, Suruchi's son Uttama was his favorite child. And we see the whole pastime, how Dhruv Maharaj's pastime happened. Dhruv Maharaj also tried to sit. Uttama was already sitting on the father's lap. Dhruv Maharaj also tried to sit. He was just 5 years old. So he also tried to sit, climb up on his father's lap. And at that time, Suruchi pushed him down. And she said that if you want to sit on your father's lap, you have to take birth from my womb in the next lifetime. You cannot sit on your father's lap right now. It's only Uttama who will sit, my son Uttama who will sit on your father's lap. And obviously then Dhruv Maharaj felt, with his lips quivering, he was crying because he was Kshatriya. He felt very insulted that, he was dealt with like this by his stepmother. So he ran to his mother Suniti for solace. And we see over there that, Prabhupada describes in the purports that Queen Suniti was also going through a similar situation what the queens of Maharaj Chitraketu were going through in this situation. The only difference was Suniti had a child. These queens did not have a child, so obviously that was an unfortunate situation for them. But for a mother, there is nothing worse than hearing that her child has been insulted or her child has not been dealt with properly. And that is what Suniti had to hear from Dhruv Maharaj. So first of all, she also said that what can I do? I am also a neglected wife. King Uttanapad doesn't give me any attention. He is always showering all his affection and attention on Suruchi. So I am also a neglected wife. I am helpless. She told Dhruv Maharaj, I cannot do anything. I can't effect any change in your father's heart towards you because I am the neglected wife and therefore you are the neglected child. But did she fester the quality of envy in her heart and tell Dhruv Maharaj, go and poison Uttama? No, she did not do that because she was a devotee of the Lord. So she actually became Dhruv Maharaj's guru and she guided him on the right path. And that she did not allow that neglect which she was also facing by Uttanapad to turn into envy and other anarthas in her heart. She directed him on the right path of taking shelter of the Supreme Lord. She told him, she was his Vartama Pradakshika Guru. She told him, you go to the forest, you take shelter of the Supreme Lord, you pray to him, only he can help in this situation because I can't help you, my son. You have come to me for shelter, but I am also neglected by your father, so I can't help you. And then obviously the whole pastime unfolds. Dhruv Maharaj goes to the forest and he meets Narada Muni who guides him then how to do austerities to attain the favor of the Supreme Lord. But we see a similar situation here and Queen Suniti's response was absolutely different in a similar situation to what these wives are displaying over here. The quality of envy which they are displaying. So the queens are taking shelter of their lower nature, whereas Queen Suniti took shelter of the higher nature. She allowed her consciousness to be raised in that tiring circumstance, whereas the queens have taken shelter of envy. Now the root cause of envy, it is mentioned, Prabhupada mentions time and again, the root cause of envy is nothing but false ego in the heart. That is the root cause of envy, and that false ego and envy doesn't allow one to accept authority, and it also doesn't allow one to be subservient. So the definition of envy, when I was preparing, I was reading, the definition of envy is, why him or her should get this particular thing, why not me? That is the definition of envy. Why should they have the mercy? Why not me? Like, if we sometimes see somebody is being favored by a Guru Maharaj, or somebody gets special attention, or somebody is being glorified by others. So we generally try to check, am I feeling envious when somebody else is glorified by others? Or am I feeling envious when somebody else is receiving more mercy than me? And when we see that, yes, we have that tinge of envy in our heart, that why him or her being glorified, why not me? I also do great services. I also, render so much, like I also give so much Lakshmi, or I also do so much service for my Guru Maharaj, or I also do, cook well. Why not my cooking being praised? Like that. So that is the nature of envy. That why him or her? Why not me? All this attention, all this affection should be on me and not on that other person. That is the nature of envy. And they are not happy to see that others are being glorified or others are in a better position than them. And Prabhupada says that the nature of envy is not only that, we are not happy that somebody is being glorified or recognized, but we want to destroy that happiness or glorification which is coming to them. That is the nature of envy. And like I said, the root cause of it is false ego in the heart. Now this false ego does not even allow one, because of the envy that has entered in the heart, it does not allow one to actually accept the position of the servant of the servant of servant. If we see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came to exactly teach us that. He came to teach us how to be the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. Vopi bhartur padakamalayur das das dasanu das. So our goal of life in Krishna consciousness is to become the servant of the servant of servant. And here the queens are lamenting why we are, made servant of the servants in this verse. They are saying that, they are not happy about that position at all. That we are not even being treated properly as the maid servant of the servant. Our position is more unfortunate. So we see, because of envy, it does not allow us to accept authority. It does not allow us to become subservient to somebody else. That is the nature of envy and false ego in the heart. And therefore they want to destroy. So, Prabhupada, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give us this concept of Prabhu. That everybody else is a master, and therefore in ISKCON, Prabhupada had this culture where we are addressing each other as Prabhu. So sometimes we might say Prabhu, Prabhu, but when somebody tells us to do something, we don't want to do it. But the meaning of Prabhu is that you are my master. That is the meaning of addressing somebody as Prabhu, and I am your servant. So, that and that is exactly what we are seeing with the queens here. Because their consciousness was not raised to that higher level, they were lamenting their position of being a servant of the servant of the servant, who was neglected by their husband. So queens didn't raise their consciousness to a higher level, and they did not accept the Lord's plan for them because of that. They did not accept that, okay, maybe it's the Lord's plan that we don't have children in this lifetime. So they did not just go with the Lord's plan, and they wanted to change. They wanted to interfere in the Lord's plan, thinking they know better, because they had become envious of Queen Krutadyuti, and they had become envious of that child who was taking away the affection of their husbands from them. Because right now the child was taking away the affection. So they thought that it is the cause of their problems in life is this child. That is what they felt, and therefore they actually administered poison. They became murderers. Can you imagine how much their envy festered in their heart, that they are queens. Now these queens, and obviously this is Satya Yuga going on, so these queens are all coming from very good aristocratic families. They are coming from big kings, obviously, who have, they are coming from that whole culture, where, the royal culture, where they are taught at least all these good human qualities. But the nature of envy became so strong, it is said, in their heart, like we see in Bhagavad Gita, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsham. Once your mind is completely obsessed with sense gratification, it cannot think of anything else. And when that sense gratification or whatever you want does not come to you, then krodhat bhavati sammoha. The next verse, Krishna says, that the mind becomes completely entrapped by anger. And when this anger or envy is there in the mind, then one's memory becomes bewildered, Krishna says in that verse, and their intelligence is lost. So we read in the translation of verse 43, it says, as their envy increased, they lost their intelligence and became completely hard-hearted and unable to tolerate the king's neglect. So that is the nature of anger and envy. It completely makes us become bewildered, and our intelligence gets lost. So like I said, these queens were from very good families, but their intelligence was completely lost and they became murderers. They actually murdered that child by giving him poison. So this was the reaction of envy, and because which came from neglect, which they faced from their husbands. Now, if we go back in Krishna Lila, there are so many demons who came to kill Krishna during his Vrindavan pastimes. And Bhaktivedanta Thakur says that every demon represents one anartha in the heart. And the anartha of envy is represented by none other than Kaliya. So when Kaliya was there in Vrindavan, obviously the anartha of envy was so manifest in Kaliya that he felt that he is the only enjoyer of that lake where he was living. And nobody else can come and enjoy the waters of that lake. And because of that envy, Kaliya represents envy because he was the emblem of envy. We see that similar thing. He had also poisoned that lake and kept. That whole lake, he had spread his poison inside that whole lake. And he actually, if you see, indirectly poisoned Krishna's cowherd friends and the cows. He also murdered Krishna's cowherd friends and cows by giving them poison because they came to, innocently came to drink water from that lake and they did not realize it had been poisoned by Kaliya. So they drank that water and, Kaliya became the cause. Kaliya was the murderer. Because of his poison, they actually died. It was only when Krishna glanced on them that they revived. But otherwise, Kaliya had done the same thing which the wives have done here. So I thought that is a, good analogy to understand because Kaliya represents envy and he also did similar to what we see being done over here. And, in our many, like ISKCON gurus tell in many lectures that the antidote for envy. So we recognize there is envy in the heart, like obviously in our hearts, we come across this envy as the anartha being manifested in terms of we not liking somebody being appreciated, or we not liking somebody, rising, getting more mercy, or they becoming more prominent. So these are little ways in which we identify envy. Thankfully, we are on the path of Krishna consciousness. Nobody goes to this extent of murdering somebody because of envy. But the antidote for envy, I was listening in a lecture, was that that you appreciate someone profusely. That is the antidote for envy. So as soon as we recognize, obviously, Krishna consciousness is all about recognition, rectification, and recognition, remorse, and rectification. So we first glance, we introspect, we take time to meditate on our anarthas. Bhaktivedanta Thakur says that every Ekadashi, like today's Ekadashi, it is a good occasion to meditate on our anarthas and to develop the 26 qualities, the Vaishnava qualities. So, we first of all introspect and we recognize that, yes, I have this anartha, this particular anartha, and I need to work on it. And then obviously we feel remorse because that anartha is there, and then we take the rectification action. And in this case, the rectification action, the Guru Maharaj say, for envy, once we recognize, if we have, like speaking of me especially, if I have envy in my heart, then the remorse is, and the rectification is to profusely appreciate everybody else, especially that person towards whom we are feeling envy. Because by the quality of appreciation and by the quality of continuously glorifying somebody else, we are actually we are actually coming off that platform that I should be glorified and I should be the one who should have received this. Devamrit Maharaj was once saying in a class here in Melbourne only, he was explaining the difference between envy and jealousy. And he was saying that actually, because we know that, the material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. And whatever we see in the material world is actually present in the spiritual world. So he says that, but envy is present in the form of jealousy in the spiritual world. There is no envy in the spiritual world. But it is present in the form of jealousy. But jealousy is that competition between the gopi. Like even the gopis have jealousy with each other, amongst each other. But that jealousy is just the competition amongst all of them on how, okay, this gopi has served Krishna so nicely. How can I become better than this gopi so that I can serve Krishna nicely? And therefore Krishna's pleasure increases even more. So that is the quality they have there in the spiritual world of jealousy. So they might also they might have that competitive spirit. They might see that, oh, somebody is doing better, how do I become better? But it is not a destroying quality. They don't want to destroy that other person's talent, or they don't want to destroy that other person completely because they did something nice. They want to become better out of competition just so that Krishna is more pleased. So that is how, they each are trying to outnumber each other in trying to do better for Krishna. And that more inspiration from each other in trying to do better. So that is how jealousy is being used in the service of Krishna. Because ultimately, whose pleasure is increasing? Krishna's pleasure is increasing by one gopi trying to do better than the other gopi. And then Maharaj was saying, Devamrit Maharaj was saying, but envy is the opposite of that. Envy is indirect appreciation of someone who is doing well. Because when do we feel envious of someone who is lower than us? Let's say, I can sing well, but somebody else can't sing well. I will not feel envious of that person because they can't sing. Or I can cook well, but somebody else can't cook well, so I won't feel envious of that person. So envy is always of a person who's actually better than us, whom we perceive to be better than us, and therefore we are indirectly appreciating that they are better than us. But the quality of envy always has that destroying effect. We want to destroy the source of their glory, or we want to destroy that person not having that particular credit in life. So we try to take action such that we want to become center and they should not be the center. And that is the quality of envy. And therefore it is said the antidote for envy is, instead of indirectly appreciating someone, you directly appreciate them and you profusely glorify them. And by that, we will see that this, quality, the anartha of envy will slowly go away from the heart. As soon as we recognize, we go and do the rectification act of glorifying someone. And obviously, we say the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is the greatest antidote. It is there for Cheto Darpana Marjamana. We are chanting to clean the mirror of our mind, which is accumulated with dust of years, of millions of lifetimes of all these anarthas which we have been gathering and gathering and gathering over all our lifetimes. So chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is obviously the basic antidote which we use, but also the immediate antidote we use is to glorify others, to get rid of this envy from our heart. So that is the theme for today's verses, the 3 verses that we discussed. And it is also the first day of Jhooland Yatra. So we'll spend a little bit of time discussing about Jhooland Yatra and the significance of Jhooland Yatra and the sweetness of Jhooland Yatra. So obviously we are now entering that season of the year where there are so many festivals that are going to come. So today it starts with, today's Ekadashi, Pavitra Ropan Ekadashi it's called. It starts with Jhooland Yatra, which will last for 5 days, and it ends with Balram Purnima on this Friday. And then obviously next Friday we have Janmashtami, and then Prabhupada Appearance Day, and then Radhashtami. So, like a very busy time, an auspicious and ecstatic time for devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement. So all these festivals or Utsav, they are called as, the significance of Utsav. So the meaning of Utsav, the Utsav word comes from the word Utsa. So Utsa means enthusiasm. So all these Utsavs are there to increase the enthusiasm of devotees. In fact, Bhaktivedanta Thakur says that if one wants to progress in Krishna consciousness, one should celebrate all these festivals which come in Krishna consciousness, especially the appearance day of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityanand Prabhu, Krishna, Balram, Radharani. We should celebrate them with a lot of awe, reverence and lot of effort. We should celebrate them very enthusiastically because that is the way to make progress. So the meaning of Utsav is to increase our Utsa. And that is why, these festivals keep coming in our lives, so that all of us can become absorbed in the mood of the festival and all of us can then make progress in our devotional life. So Jhooland Yatra, starting with Jhooland Yatra, which we will see today in the evening, and especially it's happening live after 2 years. So we had been in lockdown for 2 years, the live Jhooland Yatra didn't happen at all. So this is the first time after 2 years that we are getting to come back together. Everybody will be able to swing the Lord. Otherwise, we had to do it on YouTube. We had to swing the Lord on YouTube, with our Manasi Seva we had to do. But this is the first time we are going to be able to come together to swing the Lord. So devotees have been hankering for this particular pastime, especially this pastime, since a long time. So this is one of the sweetest pastimes of Radha Krishna being swung and devotees getting a chance to intimately serve them. Now, I have been personally to many temples, like we lived in US, before that we lived in Canada, we lived in Japan. So I've been to a few, not many, but to a few temples around the world. And I can tell you like wholeheartedly and with full conviction that Melbourne temple has one of the best Jhooland Yatras in the world. You know, the level of the quality of Jhoola every day like keeps increasing. And you know, then we see the crescendo on Friday with Balram Purnima. So, you know, in this way the festival is not with this beautiful decorations and nice kirtan, so many devotees, like the queue is so long on Jhooland Yatra days, so many devotees coming together to celebrate this festival. Personally, I haven't seen it being celebrated so well in any other festivals. Like some festivals have nice Jhooland Yatra, but sometimes they call professional decorators to decorate everything for the Jhoola. But in this temple, it is that congregation devotees. They make groups every day. Like we have 5 groups who are decorating for 5 days, and everybody is like in anxiety, what theme to do. You know, days and days of preparation goes on what theme to do for the Jhoola, what flowers to order, what color combinations to put for the Lord. So it's such a nice way that devotees completely get absorbed in this meditation of preparing for this particular festival. So this year is special because obviously we are doing it after a gap of 2 years. Now this festival actually takes place in the month of Shravan. Now Shravan month is the rainy season month in Vrindavan. In India it's the rainy season month. And obviously this festival originated in Vrindavan. So it is celebrated during the month of Shravan, during the month of the rainy season or the month of the monsoon season. And that is one of the most beautiful seasons in India. Because after the hot summer, when the rains have started falling, everything has become nice, very lush, very green, everything has become, the temperatures have started cooling down, and everyone's hearts are becoming jubilant because they are coming out of this hot summer months. So the atmosphere and the ambience becomes very beautiful during Shravan month when these rains have started falling. And we see that all the devotees in Vrindavan aspire to then serve Radha and Krishna during these beautiful months. They want to, Radha and Krishna to come together after the scorching heat of the summer. They want to come together and they want to take advantage of this ambience which has now come up to serve Radha and Krishna better. So the confidential associates of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan come together to create beautiful swing arrangements for the pleasure of the Lord. And all this happens in the direction of Vrinda Devi. She is the director. So even when any kunjas have to be decorated for Radha and Krishna to have intimate pastimes, or even when the swing has to be decorated, it is Vrinda Devi who is the main person and everybody works under her direction. She decides, and she knows, today Radharani is in this mood or Krishna is in this mood. So the whole color theme will be according to that mood. The flowers will be according to that mood. So like that, Vrinda Devi is an expert in arranging all these decorations. So everybody works together under her guidance to create beautiful swings. And sometimes a beautiful swing is created with lotus, like in the shape of a lotus, it is said by Vrinda Devi, where in the center, in the bowl of the lotus, they seat Radha and Krishna on a beautifully decorated throne. And then on the petals around the lotus, the 8 principal gopis, the Ashtasakis sit on the swing itself, and then other millions of gopis sit. And then some of the other gopis then swing the Lord. So it is described very beautifully in the scriptures that sometimes the gopis are swinging Radha and Krishna. Sometimes Radharani gets down and she makes the gopis sit. And she is also swinging. And she also takes the pleasure of swinging her devotees along with Krishna and the pleasure of seeing them united with Krishna. So this is how these beautiful pastimes take place. Now it is described that before this pastime happens of, the Radha Krishna Jhooland Yatra, there is a festival which is celebrated in Vrindavan and especially in the northern parts of India, which is called as Haryali Teej. So Haryali Teej is a day because Haryali means greenery. So like we said, because it's monsoon season, there is so much greenery everywhere. And this festival signifies that actually the brother goes to bring the sister from her sasural, from her in-laws place back to her maika. It is maika means her mother's place. So always on Haryali Teej, the brother goes to the sister's in-laws house and he brings her with lot of love. He brings her back to her parents' house where she stays for a few days and enjoys the association of her parents and her childhood friends. So in the spiritual world, it is described that once Radharani was waiting, it was time for her brother Sridama to come and pick her up. And she was waiting, but nobody was coming to pick her up. And she really wanted to go and see her parents. She wanted to see Vrishabhanu Maharaj and Kirtida Mata. And she started crying bitterly because Sridama had not come only. And then she saw somebody from Barsana was passing by. So she called that person and gave message that, can you go and tell my father that why Sridama has not come to pick me up? So that person gives message, and then Kirtida Mataji and Mata and Vrishabhanu Maharaj start preparing that, oh, we have to bring Radharani, she wants to come, she's feeling separation from her maternal home. So they prepare lots of gifts to give to send with Sridama, because they know Radharani's mother-in-law and sister-in-law, Jatila and Kutila, are always behind her back. They're always, blaming her, or they're always troubling Radharani. So we saw again yesterday in the lecture, we heard about how a wife should be tolerant towards the in-laws and, serve their in-laws nicely. And we see it's there in the spiritual world also. Radharani has to, tolerate her in-laws, Jatila and Kutila, and they sometimes, they keep, because they're always scared that Krishna will come and, take that Radharani away from her husband. So they're always scared, and they're always therefore trying to make something to keep her away from Vrindavan and from Barsana. So Vrishabhanu Maharaj knew that, and therefore he sent lots of gifts with Sridama to give to Jatila, that go and pacify Radharani's mother-in-law, so that without any problem she sends Radharani with you. So when Sridama arrived in Radharani's in-laws' place, and he said, I've come to take Radharani away, the first reaction by Jatila was, no, she can't go there, there is lot of work over here, so you please don't take her. And then Sridama gave all those gifts, because he knew she is going to refuse. So he gave all the gifts which Vrishabhanu Maharaj had sent, and that melted Jatila's heart. So she said, okay, you take her, but take only for a few days, then you send her back over here. So Radharani became extremely happy that she was being taken over to her parents' house. So once she reached Barsana, obviously she united with her parents, she was seeing them after a long time, so there was jubilation and reunion which happened. But still Radharani was a little sad, because she was thinking how her mother-in-law was not wanting to send her, how her sister-in-law also keeps troubling her at home. So she was still feeling a bit sad. The vestiges of whatever she was going through in her in-laws' place was still there in her mind, even at her parents' place. And the Sakhis saw this, Radharani in this mood, and they could not tolerate seeing Radharani unhappy like this. They said, oh, we must do something to bring Radharani out of this mood, and we must make her happy. We have to make her jubilant. She'll be there hardly for a few days, then she'll go away. So it is said that the Sakhis actually did research. The gopis did research of the Vedas to find out what can actually enhance Radharani's mood. And then they came up with this idea of doing a Jhooland Yatra for Radharani and Krishna's pleasure. And if we see for us also, like in our childhood, especially, all of us, even here we see, but in our childhood we see, even now, not only in childhood, but even now, like if we get to swing on a swing, everybody loves it, irrespective of what age group we are at. We all love to swing. And it has somehow that, when we are swinging back and forth, it has that calming effect on the mind. So that has originated from Radharani, and maybe it is there in the scriptures which the gopis researched, that create a beautiful swing, and when they are swinging in that swing, Radharani's anxiety and the things which are troubling her mind will go away. And that is exactly then what the gopis did. That's when this Jhooland Yatra originated. They created beautiful swing, they put Radharani and Krishna on that swing, and Radharani's, when she was sitting by her beloved's side and getting swung by her intimate friends, that's when all the troubles went from her mind and her mind became pacified. Another beautiful pastime which is there, which glorifies this Jhooland Yatra, is the pastime of Narada Muni. So we know Narada Muni is always trying to enhance the Lord's pastimes and take them to the next level, but sometimes the means he uses to enhance the Lord's pastimes are very, very unusual means he uses. And he is caused to create conflicts always. It is said, Narayan, Narada Muni comes and creates through chanting of Narayan, he creates jagda. Jagda means conflict between devotees of the Lord. And that's exactly what happened in this pastime, but it actually enhanced the mood of the pastime. So once, the gopis like this had created a beautiful swing for Radha and Krishna's pleasure, and Radharani would take extra care to dress up on that day. Just as we will see in the evening, our beautiful Radha Krishna will be dressed by the pujaris. And extra effort is put in by the pujaris so that they look very beautiful on the swing when they are coming out on the swing to enjoy the pastime. So in that same way, Radharani was also taking a little bit of extra time to decorate herself very nicely. for the swing festival. And everybody was waiting here. Krishna was already ready, he was waiting, all the Sakhis were waiting, but Radharani had not yet come. And that time Narada Muni came by. And Krishna had actually warned Radharani before. He said that, look, you have to be careful of this Narada Muni because he can create conflicts. He might sometimes create a conflict between both of us as well. So be very careful of him. He's my devotee, but still, he has this habit. So I'm just cautioning you. But Radharani did not take it seriously because she thought, oh, Narada Muni is a great sage. And she was very innocent that way. So she said, how can a great sage create anything like that? He's such a pure devotee of the Lord. So we see Narada Muni appeared on the scene where Krishna and the gopis are waiting near the swing for Radharani to arrive. And Narada Muni is, obviously he's singing beautifully on his veena, Narayan's glories he's singing. And Krishna is very happy with him, and Krishna pays obeisances to him and says, Narada Muni, what would you like? And Narada Muni said, oh my Lord, for once I would like to see you swinging with Lalita Sakhi. So Krishna says, no, we are all waiting for Radharani. Let her come and then you can observe me and Radharani swinging. And Narada Muni said, no, just one desire I have, Krishna. I just want to see you swinging with Lalita Sakhi. And anyway, Radharani is not here. You're all anyway waiting. So by the time she arrives, can you not swing with Lalita Sakhi? My heart hankers to see this darshan. So that is how he somehow convinced Krishna that I want to see you swinging with Lalita Sakhi. And reluctantly, Lalita Sakhi sat on the swing. Because Radharani is left-wing gopi. And one of the qualities of left-wing gopis is, man. They become very angry with Krishna. And obviously that is to increase the pleasure of Krishna. Whereas Chandravali and the other Sakhis are right-wing gopi. They are very subservient gopis. So they usually don't become angry with Krishna, but this is left-wing gopis. And Lalita Sakhi knew Radharani can become angry. So she was very hesitant. But Narada Muni insisted, so Lalita Sakhi sat hesitatingly beside Krishna. And the gopis started swinging them. So Narada Muni saw for a few seconds and then he disappeared from there. And he straight went to Radharani. And Radharani was putting finishing touches. Obviously, she was about to just, leave for the Jhooland Yatra. And he goes and tells Radharani, what are you doing here? And Radharani said, I'm getting ready because, all the gopis have created a beautiful swing. And today I and Krishna are going to have a beautiful pastime on the swing. They're all going to swing us. He said, what you're saying? The pastime has already started over there. And she said, really? He said, yeah, it is Lalita Sakhi who is swinging with Krishna. Go and see with your own eyes. They have not even waited for you. They have already started the pastime amongst themselves only. So, Radharani's heart became really hurt that my Sakhis didn't wait for me, even Krishna didn't wait for me. And she came running. And she actually saw that Lalita Sakhi is swinging with Krishna over there. And she becomes very angry and she leaves that place and goes away. And then obviously Krishna realized what damage Narada Muni has done. He immediately recognized that this is all Narada Muni is doing. So then he goes behind Radharani and he explains the whole thing to her. He says, didn't I caution you that Narada Muni can do this? It was he who insisted that Lalita Sakhi and I should swing together because he wants to take that darshan. And on his insistence we did, and then he comes and complains to you. And tries to, incite anger inside you, saying that, look what they are doing without involving you or waiting for you. So then Radharani had a good laugh about it, and obviously she came back and they continued enjoying that pastime. Radharani and Krishna then swung. So this is a beautiful pastime, two pastimes which happened during Jhooland Yatra time. Now Jhooland Yatra, like I said, happens during the monsoon season. And monsoon season, we see there are dark blue clouds which gather in the sky normally, ready to shower rain in Vrindavan, since we are talking about Vrindavan. Now it is described that these dark blue clouds which gather, Krishna's complexion is compared to a dark blue rain cloud, as we know. So Krishna always gives the credit saying that my complexion is like these dark blue rain clouds. And we all say that Krishna's complexion is dark blue like the rain cloud. But actually, if you see that it is said in the scriptures, and we know it also, that Krishna is the cause of all causes. So it is actually him, the clouds, who are the color of Krishna. Krishna originally already had that color, and it is the clouds who have taken on the complexion of Krishna. But this is the quality of Krishna to give credit to his devotees all the time. So every cloud is actually an unalloyed, pure devotee of Krishna in the spiritual world, even the clouds which are there in the sky. So Krishna is thinking, oh, look how my complexion is beautiful like these beautiful rain clouds. But the clouds know their position. And they are saying that, oh, look how our complexion is beautiful because we are colored like Krishna. But, so, Krishna reciprocates with these pure devotees, these, these clouds, by glancing at them, by which the beauty of the clouds further increases. Their complexion becomes even further deeper blue, and it starts resembling Krishna more. And they become very ecstatic because they have received Krishna's glance, and they have received that glorification of being credited as having the Krishna having a similar complexion to them. Imagine somebody saying, oh, your complexion is, Krishna has a complexion like you. So like that, the clouds are being glorified eternally like that. And they reciprocate with this, love of Krishna by showering beautiful rain showers on him. And it is said that in Vrindavan, the rain is very pleasing. Now, I especially come from a city like Mumbai, where the rain is not pleasing at all. When it rains, everything becomes so muddy. Things start getting flooded. All the roads start getting, even the houses start getting flooded. If it rains too much, water enters the house, all the furniture starts getting destroyed. And even all the sewage that starts overflowing. We see dirty water coming on the streets. We might have to walk through that water sometimes. So it's not a very pleasant experience in Mumbai especially, or in any big city if you see. But in Vrindavan, the experience is not like that. In Vrindavan, it is very pleasing when the rain showers the clouds shower their rain. And it is also said that these clouds are trying to please Krishna and the devotees. They are so diligent and careful in pleasing Krishna and his devotees that they will wet the devotee only if the devotee wants to become wet. And if a devotee is engaged in some service where they don't want to become wet, then the cloud will actually not pour rain on them. And that devotee will not become wet even though it is pouring everywhere else. So that is the quality of these unalloyed pure devotees, the clouds, who are trying to please Lord Krishna. So we see that they shower a beautiful rain, the rains on these, all these devotees, and by which they are enhancing the beauty of the whole pastime. So we have just come out of the hot summer, and by the time these rains are starting in Shravan month, the air is still very humid and thick. And there is still lot of, because the rain is going to fall. So it's that in between atmosphere where it becomes very thick, very humid. People are perspiring and sweating because the heat temperature is still coming down. It has not completely come down. And that is why Jhooland Yatra is celebrated in this month. Because then it creates beautiful breezes by which Radha and Krishna are swung. And then the clouds also start pouring rain slowly. And then the whole atmosphere and ambience is enhanced for Radha and Krishna's pleasure. So that is the significance we see of Jhooland Yatra, how it is celebrated in Vrindavan. All the confidential associates of Krishna come together to celebrate, to create beautiful swings. Like we will see from today, all the confidential associates of Melbourne congregation will come together to create beautiful swings for Krishna. And we see what a compassionate act Srila Prabhupada did for all of us. So these pastimes were happening in Vrindavan. It's described that almost all 5,000 temples of Vrindavan celebrate Jhooland Yatra. And it is said people from all other villages, actually it's very crowded in Vrindavan during this time. All people from all other villages also come to celebrate this beautiful pastime. And especially some of the main temples like Bake Bihari, Radha Raman, they have gold and silver jhulas made of gold and silver, and they decorate them, and then everybody gets the opportunity to swing the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada was nicely living in Vrindavan. He was part of all these pastimes, these Leelas which used to happen in Vrindavan. But very compassionately he came out of Vrindavan on the order of his Guru to preach in the Western world. So had Srila Prabhupada not come to all these places like Australia, which is one of them, we would not have had this opportunity to celebrate Jhooland Yatra in such an ecstatic way, so far away from Vrindavan. So Srila Prabhupada actually brought Vrindavan to every city and country of the world where he went, and he spread Krishna consciousness. In fact, for Melbourne temple, he has said, there is a, I think that notice is still there outside. He called the Melbourne temple as being non-different from Vrindavan. So we see, because of his compassionate act, otherwise we would have had to go to Vrindavan to celebrate, to be part of these beautiful pastimes. But Srila Prabhupada, out of his compassionate act, came to Vrindavan, and he brought these beautiful pastimes to all these cities in the faraway places in the Western world, for the devotees to nicely take part in them and be part of these beautiful festivals. So we'll end the class here. This was some of the significance of Jhooland Yatra. Any questions, comments, corrections? You didn't know that, sorry?
I've heard that we came down in the spiritual world because of envy. I've also heard that there's no envy in the spiritual world. So I'm just trying to solve.
Yeah, a very nice question. So this is actually $1 million question which is asked in ISKCON since time immemorial. So when we say that, we came because we had envy in our heart. Now there are, different understandings which we have, and Prabhupada has also given these understandings to us. So one of the understanding is that we were all happily with Krishna in the spiritual world, and we got the desire to enjoy like Krishna. So that necessarily need not be envy in the heart. Like sometimes if a child sees, we always give this example in Bhakti Vriksha programs, that if a child sees their father driving a car, so the child might get a desire that I also want to drive this car. I also want to be like daddy. I also want to be able to drive the car. That is not necessarily envy, but it's just that the child has the desire, I want to enjoy, or I want to do what my father is doing. So in the same way it is described in the spiritual world, the jiva was happy in the association of Krishna, but for a moment that jiva got the feeling, that soul got the feeling that why can't I be also enjoying like Krishna is enjoying. Now, and Krishna, because he is very merciful, so he wants to satisfy all the desires of every living entity. They are his parts and parcel. So, but he knows that particular desire of a soul cannot be satisfied inside the spiritual world. Because in the spiritual world, everyone's consciousness is just how Krishna can be the enjoyer, how we should all serve him. So obviously it cannot coexist. If somebody has developed that mood, it cannot coexist in the spiritual world, and therefore he creates the material world. For the jiva for the soul to then come down and think that he is the enjoyer. He is enjoying like Krishna. He is the center and everything is meant for his enjoyment. So in the same way, just as if a child desires to drive the car, the father will not obviously give him the car, because it's not safe for the child. He might, meet with an accident and endanger his own life. So then what the father does, he might take the child to go karting, or he might take him to that virtual car race, where the child is thinking and he is sitting behind the steering wheel and thinking he is driving a car. So the father might satisfy the desire of the child like that. In the same way, Krishna satisfied the desire of the jiva by creating this material world and giving a false sense of enjoyment to the jiva. So that's how we all came down here. That is one of the, obviously there are different understandings, but that is one of the understandings of the origin of why we came down over here.
Thank you very much for the wonderful class. What is the reference from where you are reading this Jhooland Yatra? What is the reference you can look on?
Which part of the? A few lectures, Prabhuji, I looked at. One was from Radhanath Maharaj, and then I read up on the internet. I read up about, plus over the years, whatever we've heard from different speakers.
No particular book?
No, Prabhuji, it's from different sources.
Journals, different journals.
Yes, Prabhuji. Anything else?
It was very interesting explaining about the left wing and the right wing, these behaviours. It was interesting.
Yeah, very, very nice to hear of those pastimes and the different moods which gopis have. Okay, we'll end the class here. Granthraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.